Don't have time to dilly-dally. Not at all. Things are happening. Patience is wearing thin. The Wi-Fi could go out at any time, as seen. And, maybe have to rely on management to get some better Wi-Fi. But till then, we'll stay a bluegrass local show. After all, not all of us can afford $1 million houses in Blacksburg, Virginia. As we welcome you back into Blacksburg, Virginia on Wednesday, November 12th, year of our Lord 2025, with another update talking about the man, James Franklin. So jumping into it, we'll talk about a little bit of everything. Obviously, Franklin's much covered travel, the murky timelines regarding the whole ordeal, and what is the holdup? I think those are probably some of the biggest questions that people are having. Before we get into it, I cannot say thank you enough to everyone that has sort of got this show up off the ground with everyone tuning in. I know it's been a busy news cycle, and it sort of happened organically, obviously, with the coaching search, but I missed last show, and the outpouring of different people reaching out and things was pretty cool to see. So, I reiterate it. I come on here every show and say that, but genuinely, thank you guys so much for getting this off the ground, trying to produce the best product for everyone, learning, growing every time. But subscribe to the channel, like the video. It helps a ton. Trying to produce the best product. And hopefully the Wi-Fi is cooking right now because, like I said, we don't have a producer in here. So hopefully we're all good. But I appreciate everyone. Thank you so much. Without further ado, let's get right into it. So, James Franklin, obviously the top target for Virginia Tech in their head coaching search to be their next head football coach. The worst kept secret overall. I know everyone wants to talk about NDAs and how is any of this even getting out? Well, I think it is very evident to nearly everyone involved that James Franklin has obviously been circled as a top target for Virginia Tech. And on Tuesday, received and can now confirm reports that James Franklin was back in Blacksburg, Virginia, searching for houses. It sounds like prior times he'd been with a different committee member. It sounds like this time, this is unconfirmed. It sounds like he was with a different committee member looking at houses, but we can confirm that James Franklin was back in Blacksburg on Tuesday, November 11th, searching for houses in the Blacksburg region. It sounds like varying reports out there. If he was with family or different people, it sounds like he was alone. But now this third time documented coming to Blacksburg looking for houses. Obviously, the last time was prior to the Louisville game, and then a time before that. And there was some speculation around that, but now being able to confirm a third time. And I'm going to be pretty forward with it. Pretty youthful in covering all these deals, but talking to different people and different sources who have seen this. It's very rare for a target for a school to visit 3 times, especially looking at houses without things materializing further. So I think it is really important to say that while the deal is not done, and I know people want to say verbal agreements and all with that right now, even some people really privy to information, like even maybe leaking out or saying it's done, like really close to the situation, maybe even saying that. Still not, I think we'll know soon confidently. And I can say that confidently. I know it's been imminent for a while, but just with the timeline and certain things, I think there's a little bit of a snag, and we'll get into that. Not a major snag at all. I think it's just obviously when dealing with a contract of this size that can affect so violently at the state level. You don't have to look far down to Louisiana, how big these coaching contracts can be, especially at the state level. But yeah, I think you got to feel pretty confident if you are a Virginia Tech fan, a Virginia Tech stakeholder. Things are moving in a positive direction, that he's obviously back in the region looking, and it's been multiple times now dialing in on, a future home. So I think that is a really big aspect, especially when you start to hear some of those details pouring out. Yes, I know a lot of people wanted to make jokes about Wi-Fi, and I was camping out at the airport. No, didn't get any confirmed sightings, but was able to confirm through sourcing networks that he was here again. So we'll see, but I would say it would happen soon confidently. But this is the nature of these big contracts. I know people get frustrated. I see the chat lighting up, and we'll get back to it about break the news right now, say it's done. It's the nature of these big contracts. You can get all the way to the 11th hour. You don't have to look far to last year with Virginia Tech and their defensive coordinator, Jim Knowles, and how that whole search went down. Obviously went down to the 11th hour until obviously things fell through, and then vet through, and then end up with Sam Seifkis. Jim Knowles goes to Penn State on $3 million contract, funnily enough, to coach with James Franklin. But that's a side note. But just to reiterate, I'm feeling good. I'm not a percentage on it. Just even looking at it, taking any maroon and orange shade off of it. Obviously, I think if you're a Virginia Tech stakeholder, you're feeling good. And we'll get into what other schools and other notes going out, but I think you have to be feeling good. Prefacing this next point, I think it's really important to say I'm not a lawyer. I'm not pre-law. A lot of this flies over my heads, but diving into it, this sounds like one of those potential holdup snags, maybe messing with the timeline. It sounds like that could be on the PS, like the Penn State buyout terms portion, on how they're going to backload or offset, if it's going to be that lump sum or the monthly payment. Now, I know some of this trickling out as I checked in the chat, but it's just not like the raw number of the buyout language in the contract. And like I said, pleading like I'm not a master in this. Obviously, that's why you have lawyers on billable hours, which is why I think it's really important to say lawyers on billable hours with this. So maybe why I think it's still going to happen pretty quickly, but they're going to get theirs too, making sure this drags out, because the lawyers, they always know how to do that. But it's just not the number of the contract. Obviously, when you see he gets relieved of duties at Penn State, and you have that $49 million tag. And obviously, a lot's been made of the duty to mitigate contract as why he has to go seek work. But it's not just, I think Red was on the VT Scoop. And also, go get over to vtscoop.com. Best place for all this as things are coming down the stretch. I think someone made the point, I think it was Red made the point of, okay, let's just say, and this is a rogue number, let's just say the flat contract will be worth $30 million with incentives up to, and this is just random numbers I'm picking, 30 million flat, but it has incentives to get it to, let's say, 60 million. How do you look at that? How do you account for that? How do you talk about, obviously James Franklin is looking at a house right now. How do you look at that aspect slipped into the contract? I'm not a lawyer. How does Penn State, how does that work into the offset clause? How do you negotiate that down? I don't know the legalese of it. I also don't know what that contract looks like, let alone a car, different amenities, tuition if his daughters were to follow him. It's just a little bit of a headache, obviously shaking that all out. That's why, especially being a lawyer on these billable hours, it sounds like that's the last snag. I know a lot of it was made out to be Jimmy Sexton as a holdup at certain parts of this. And I think I saw a comment, we might touch on it. I think part of it is, last week it was like, was that the holdup, the buyout side? Yeah, I did hear parts of that, but I honestly do think this, when looking at the sphere of what jobs are coming open, where Franklin can see himself succeeding, and just all those factors, I think this is the best place. He was maybe waiting for that Florida job, some of those other jobs, to see if they had interest. Auburn potentially. Sounds like they're going to be moving different directions. So, and we'll get into timelines a little bit on why that's important, but I don't think this is a Sexton holdup. It sounds more like Penn State having to work through the back of that, because obviously lawyers are going to take their time, but if he signed before that, then you end up in a lawsuit, and that's something obviously you don't want to do. So Penn State's got to get that in writing, and then obviously that trickles down to Sexton to get Franklin to sign a term sheet, and then I guess that would go through Virginia government attorney general's office, because these contracts are massive. So I think that is a little bit of the snag that people are waiting on. That's what it's sounding like as of our latest reporting. I think that's really important to say, but at the same time, you have to take that with a grain of salt, knowing yesterday, Tuesday, November 11th, James Franklin was back in Blacksburg for his third time looking at houses. So if you're a Virginia Tech stakeholder, if you have interest, you have to feel pretty confident that you've gotten him on campus that many times in a coaching search. Obviously, they've circled it. It's no secret the top target, and it sounds like they've done exceedingly well in that regard. That's pretty much touching on the travel, what could potentially be the holdup. I think the next thing is the timeline. And before we do that, make sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video. I know I touched on it, but I appreciate everyone jumping in here as we're sort of filling in here, lighting up the live chat. Appreciate all the support. But the timeline, and this is something where it's like, I know people, there's such fatigue, and I led the last show with fatigue. When I run another one of these and James Franklin's in the title, it's like, as great as that is, there's going to be so many other aspects if this is to go through, of coaching tree and portal and high school, and a lot of it's going to come out of it. But right now, it just feels like a little bit of pandering. But the timeline has been so funky because they got so deep in discussions, and then there's just like sort of pulling the rope. And I think at different parts there was give and take. The negotiations are pretty much over. We'll get into some different news and notes, but the offer has been out there. It's been on the table. It's very competitive, it sounds like. Now, I don't know what that structure is going to look like going back to the Penn State ordeal, but I think both sides are in a good place on it. It's just making sure that's all in place before anything happens. but you get a text from someone that you trust saying, watch the next 48 hours. Obviously, the Miami game week has always been a really big marker in this whole ordeal. Hearing from people connected to his camp saying like he wants to be on the ground, pretty much settled, or at least getting the formations of that prior to that Miami game to utilize that to try and get a kickstart on recruiting and everything for next season. Obviously, that's big. That Miami weekend is right after Florida State on the 15th here. So how do you get, when does this, I don't know the timeline. When does this officially get across? Because if you do follow that, it sounds like Saturday could be in that range. Obviously, a lot's been made on November 17th. Shout out at vtscoop.com. Message board is just absolutely amazing. I feel so lucky I've been exposed to it because, you have people almost like weeks ago saying, look, there's been this catering date set on November 17th. This could be a big welcome for a new coach. People in the band saying they've been alerted to November 17th is a big day. I think that 17th date's a little interesting, though, because the Board of Visitors have a meeting up in Northern Virginia. So obviously there's a little overlap with some members on the board, also on the committee, but those are really big stakeholders that are almost definitely going to be in the town of Blacksburg when James Franklin gets his official rollout. So is that 17th date legit for a press conference, one might say? I don't know. I could definitely see something and honestly kind of feel confident saying something over the weekend or even prior to that. That's just the feeling I'm getting based on how things have progressed. Now, I don't know how things will evolve with the contracts at Penn State and how different things shake out, but I just don't really see it going past the weekend without an announcement. So I think that's kind of where it's at with the timeline, and I know that can wear people thin, obviously, as we were on here a week ago. As soon as we started to catch wind about it, it seemed like they wanted to lock this thing down. And for a multitude of reasons, obviously it's dragged out a little bit, but if you are Virginia Tech, I know it's been heart palpitations, up and down, up and down, up and down. But to get to this point, I think you got to be feeling pretty good that they've done their due diligence on that. Obviously visiting for the third time, checking out houses, a little bit of the snag with Penn State, and then the timeline probably past the weekend. Some other notes before we get into questions. I know the show looks a lot different now with this because I do want to try to get to as many people's questions as possible. I appreciate everyone jumping in the live chat. It means a ton. Love the engagement. Hopefully it's valuable for everyone. Some last notes before I jump into that Q&A section. Make sure to subscribe and like the video. Obviously, there's been a lot made on social media, different message boards about the Arkansas interest in James Franklin and different negotiations there. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm obviously not as connected down there at Arkansas with big boosters or honestly much down there. But it definitely does not sound like they are as far in the process with James Franklin. I think that might be a little bit of a smokescreen going some other way. Personally, I don't really feel like that is going to be a hindrance at all. I don't think that is going to be much of a factor, but obviously it's something to touch on as it's been making the rounds on social media. I know there's obviously some Arkansas people in here who will feel different about that. I'm not sure exactly how that goes, but I think Virginia Tech has to feel pretty good with the position they've slotted themselves in at. Next, I'm not exactly sure what that contract number is going to look like, especially with how the Penn State buyout looks like. If they try and backload it and try and get Penn State on the hook for some of it, I could see it being in total compensation close to a 9-figure deal with everything involved. But I don't know how that's going to look. How much is Virginia Tech going to foot? But I feel like it's going to be really competitive. I'm also not sure what they're going to do. I saw comments about, obviously, I took the trip up to Happy Valley this weekend for the game. Their infrastructure is a whole lot different than the Merriman complex. And if James Franklin, you bring him in, you bring a lot with him. Andy Frank and how they sort of operate and his army, a lot's been made by Evan on the board of, the staff that he's accustomed to at Penn State. I'm not sure where they're going to house all those people if they bring that. So I think that'd be really big. I see a question about NIL. That was the next thing I was going to bring up. It sounded like the collective had a meeting sort of, making sure that you had those numbers legit, because you can go to Franklin and Sexton and all this and say, this is where we're at. This is the number. And that's cool. But it's like, can we believe that number? Because you've seen collective missed payments. You've seen people promise one thing and not deliver. I think feel pretty confidently to not put a value on that, but it's close to 3 times, if not more than 3 times, ponied up what was this year guaranteed and locked in for Franklin. It sounds like they had a meeting between the collective Franklin, and it sounds like some lawyers were involved with that to ensure, showing that they were ready to ante up on top of rev share to be extremely competitive. I know people will take that with a grain of salt, but extremely competitive, confident for that first year. And then obviously they feel good about years past that. But, results on the field will I guess, range that. But it sounds like they had a meeting with the collective. So I'm touching on that NIL question. And then lastly, obviously, this whole segment, gone 15 minutes, close to 20 minutes, talking about just James Franklin specifically. Obviously, he's a very top target for Virginia Tech and their next head football coach. But behind him, the name that has emerged pretty much has been Bob Chesney at JMU. I know there was a lot of questions. Obviously, Franklin has the element of he's not coaching right now, could come in and hit the ground running. A big concern or reservation with Chesney there for a while was, is that JMU team going to land in the playoffs? Are they going to be playing into December and January? It doesn't look like that JMU team is going to stay there. And that sounds like they've sort of settled in as that backup 1A or B option. But obviously, it's full sails ahead for Virginia Tech looking at James Franklin. And looking at it, I feel pretty confident a deal gets done there in a rather timely manner. I know I feel it sound like a broken record saying that, but I mean, not much has changed on our side of the reporting. Just obviously some different parts of it. So with that, I think that touches on most of the things I wanted to touch on. Appreciate everyone in here. I'm going to scroll back to the top, try and get through as many comments chronologically. Appreciate everyone jumping in here. I know a lot of people are driving back from the basketball game. Met a lot of people at the basketball game who said they were tuning in. So that means a ton. Appreciate it. Feeling great. Men's basketball is looking elite. Yeah, I mean, I was there for first half of the game. Definitely looks like a special roster. They built a good roster. Might have touched on this. You think since the buyout legal stuff from Penn State is making its way out now, this is what was occurring last week, and we should have an answer in the next day or so. Appreciate it, Tyler, for that question. I think I touched on this a little bit. There were some other factors in the last week that moved the goalpost a little bit. I think the buyout is definitely more a recent ordeal, but that was something that was definitely talked about last week. And I think a lot of that was in the buyout structure for Virginia Tech, what they're signing up for. Because if you were to get locked in, obviously no one wants to talk about that when you hire a hotshot coach, but that would essentially be the death sentence for Virginia Tech if they're on the hook for $50+ million buyout. So I think that'll be interesting. I think that's been something that's been pretty consistent in negotiations, but has really come to a head as it seemed like things have ramped up. One last sort of roadblock to cross the road before they, if they were to go forward and make it official. So TZ Orange, how was your trip up to Penn State? Uncover anything? Yeah, man, appreciate it. Obviously made that post over on X at Kolby_Crawford talking about my trip up to Penn State. That was on the books there for a while prior to Brent Pry being fired, prior to James Franklin really heating up here. But it was really awesome. Talked to actually a lot of people and learned a lot. Actually, it was up on the field pregame. It was a great trip. Uncovered such. Some of the stuff trickled out here on the show tonight. Some stuff might be relevant here in the next couple months as different windows and things open up, but we'll leave it at that for now because nothing is official, but we'll just leave it at that. Andrew's in here. Andrew, appreciate it. I know you're always in the live chat, man. That means a ton. Blast Chesney number 2. He's not ready for P4. I'm not sure. I think Bob Chesney brings a lot with him. I think as a young coach, and he's had a lot of experience as a head coach, maybe not at the P4 level, but his staffing choices, I think, have been so impressive. And I've been on record on this show saying James Franklin is obviously top target, checks a ton of boxes for Virginia Tech, would probably be the biggest hire of all time at Virginia Tech. Actually, is definitely the biggest hire of all time at Virginia Tech if it were to go through. But Chesney has done an incredible job of staffing. And as big as the head coach is, in this age, you have to have a great staff around you. And he's done an incredible job. Hitchler's defensive coordinator has been spot on. The way he's been able to evaluate talent at that level and honestly across multiple levels, evaluate the quarterback position has been really impressive. I think he's done a lot of really nice things. So, you never really know until you get thrown into the fire. You don't have to look far down to Tallahassee and Mike Norvell taking that step up from the G5, now the G6 ranks up to a Florida State caliber job, or some different examples. Billy Napier taking that step up to Florida. But, you have to take a shot eventually. And he will be getting a job in the Power 4 soon. If it's at Virginia Tech or not, he will be getting that opportunity. Timeline still by Saturday. Maybe I touched on this a little bit. I think Saturday is a fair timeline. I know that's a little confusing, obviously, with Florida State. But, I have heard the 15th a little bit from different people. But I've also heard different dates from different people. So they have done a good job of locking down certain things and icing different people out. Now some people go out and blabber, and a lot of that is out. And there's some people who are really in the know who almost are acting as if it's done. But I don't know if that would be time to panic. I think I would be over to vtscoop.com, and until you have a very good reason to panic, I know dragging it out is not helpful for obviously the show is catered to Virginia Tech fans. I know that's not the most warm and fuzzy feeling as things continue to go on. And I come on here and I say it's imminent, and there's another roadblock and another snag, and it just feels like things are getting waiting for another job, or oh, bail at the last second. We've been down this road before, but as of this moment, I think you have to feel really good where you've been. There's a ton of positive momentum, and it's been working that way. Deals have fallen through at the 11th hour all the time. I think they were doing everything in their power to get this across the finish line. And I think you have to feel pretty good here on Wednesday, November 12th, of it happening. Next show will be, I guess, Saturday night. Who knows what that will be talking about. But, I mean, I would not be shocked by anything if between now and game time Saturday you have an announcement. .6% done, right? I mean, I would say that's a relatively fair assessment. I know everyone's been wanting to put a percentage on it, especially over on vtscoop.com. It's how confident are you? Was on inside the tunnel earlier with the fellas, and I think you have to feel pretty good. Probably like an 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10. Things have been working really positively, but yeah, it's never done until the fat lady sings. 3, got Banana in here talking about, I presume, the times he's been to Blacksburg. Yeah, so it's definitely surprising. I know there was speculation. It's like, is that even real? I can definitely confirm reports he was here yesterday, day before the Louisville game, and another time. So it's very odd, honestly, even looking at it as covering it, to have someone drag out the process over multiple weeks like that, to be to campus so many times, and kind of be in the situation where you're at, where you're still sort of in limbo. You feel really, really good from one side. Even some people almost acting as if it's done, who are very close to the situation. But I just feel like there's still that hurdle with the buyout contract, and maybe another layer after that. But for right now, I think you get past that, you got to be feeling really, really good. Appreciate everyone here in the live chat. Like I said, we got to hit up management, get a producer so we can get these popping up. Do you have a timetable for when it could get done for this, and also all the timelines for why all happened? A lot to there, Mari, but I think the first thing touching on is a timeline for when this could happen. I don't really want to drag more people along more than I already feel like I have. It's like all signs are really sounding like around this weekend in the next couple of days, but it sounded like that for like a week now. So once all this does get across the finish line, or if it were to go that way, or whichever way it goes in a month, a couple of weeks, and we're talking about this, a Terror Dome session on vtscoop.com, a Kolby's Corner session, tell all about different details around it, I think will be very telling. But for right now, as things are still kind of up in the air, there's still more questions than answers, but a lot of positive momentum. And I know people are frustrated by that, obviously, but yeah, billable hours stay winning. They 100% do. They 100% do. Logan's talking about, I'm terrified that we will lose James to Arkansas. I don't really see it there. I've talked to multiple people today who are more plugged in at different places, but I just don't exactly see it there. And Got Donald G. Hubbard in here. I saw you active in the chat, man. Appreciate it every time. Are the Mark Stoops DC rumors true? No, I've not heard that. Obviously, staffing decisions, that'll be very interesting when that gets rolling once whatever head coach gets put in place. But no, I have not heard that. This is a good question here. Appreciate it, Tyler. If they have the basics down, will he sign an MOU and then finalize contract at a later date with all the VA legal issues? Yeah, I mean, I think that's a separate issue. But yeah, 100%. Like, I think Pry signed an MOU in November, December, and didn't officially sign his contract till January. I think this is more of an issue with Penn State and Franklin making sure that buyout agreement is locked in before he then signs a term sheet with Virginia Tech. I don't think that'll be a long-term snag and officially signing with Virginia Tech and his MOU. Like, I think his understanding agreement could be signed with Virginia Tech. But like I said, preface all that with what I said earlier. I'm not a lawyer, so I'm a little beyond my depth. Feel like I've become a little more well-versed in it through this process, but yeah. Can you confirm the report that Franklin's camp wanted the deal? Like, I have heard that has been something that's been floating that 15th. Like, and I think I touched on it. It was sort of sounding like he wants to be on the ground operating by November 15th, which is, I know that Saturday the team's going to be on the plane, in 2 days on the 14th. But it sounds like that Miami date, a lot's been made of that week and leading up to that, obviously for getting the ball rolling for the 26th season and all that can encompass. But that 15th date has seemed real. Like, I'm a little gun shy to put anything on a firm date as things have moved, ebbed and flowed so much. But yes, that Saturday date does seem like something. Now, could something come out before then? 100%. Could something come out after then? I could see it, yes. But there has been noise around that 15th date. What role did the government shutdown play in delaying the James Franklin hiring? That would be pretty classic if it reopens tomorrow and the news comes down tomorrow. I'm not sure. I don't really delve into those waters, but I don't think it had much to do at all, as a lot of those negotiations weren't really hinging on the Attorney General's office or anything. Shout out all the message board reference in the comments. Everyone's been sweating it out over on vtscoop.com. No better place to be for the coaching search. And as things ramp up with whatever coach's name, staffing, recruiting, portal, it's going to be a very, very busy time. No better place to be here. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, like the video, more content. Kolby, seriously, why would I or anyone else feel really good? There's no solid evidence that this will happen. Seriously, it feels all like clickbait. I mean, I can empathize with you for sure. Like, I would be rather frustrated as well. Like, if I felt like I was getting led along. I know I'm putting it right there in the title, obviously, but until this thing gets across the finish line, which I think they're very, very close right now, I'm not sure what else to delve into. This is obviously a show that talks primarily about college football and especially Virginia Tech. So, like, we can talk about Florida State, break down what happened at the press conference, talking about Montgomery. Really, really not much to update. I would not expect Montavious Cunningham back for the end of the year, talking to Montgomery, talked to Jason Abbey, talked about his high school experience. But a lot of this is obviously projecting forward to 2026. So not trying to lead anyone along. I think throughout this whole process, try to effectively just lay out what we're hearing, the most up-to-date stuff surrounding the coaching search. I think with all the momentum, him visiting yesterday, I feel like that is a pretty solid evidence that there is real positive momentum happening. Maybe I'm askew on my definition of that, but that's very rare, almost unheard of in different searches. So that's where it's at. I'm saying personally, I think it's really good. I'll provide with what we're hearing, and then you can make an assessment with that. So that's kind of where it's at. I'm not trying to lead anyone astray. I'm not throwing darts at a dartboard. That's just kind of where it's at. So appreciate the comment. Do you have an idea of how much NIL Franklin will have access to? Maybe a ballpark range. Just it sounds close to 3 times, if not more than 3 times in last year. So if you think about the roster that you built last year and having those funds, I mean, it's a dramatic increase. Obviously, signing a name like him opens up the checkbooks of a lot of very, very interested stakeholders. Should put you on par with a lot of different schools. Now, like I've talked about on different shows, and I feel like I'm reiterating now, there is obviously a factor of logos. And if you get a discount, you have to pay a little more for a player. But, you know, in this day and age, a lot of it does come with money. You know, guys will still make decisions to pay a little less to play in a certain system, but a lot of it comes down to money. And now you're at least punching in that weight class with a lot of those top players. So it puts you in the conversation. Now, Virginia Tech still might have to pay a premium over an Alabama, a Georgia, a Florida, obviously, but it puts you a lot closer competing with those premier Big Ten and SEC schools, obviously. So I think that's really attractive, especially when you get that resource pool and you're competing in the ACC. I mean, obviously, people can put two and two together and see why that could be advantageous for James Franklin, but that's definitely part of it. Ralph, were the lights on at Lane tonight? I was in Merriman and back on the practice field. I didn't see the Lane lights on, but I mean, they are on every once in a while. I was at the game, did see that on the message board, so can't confirm that. Obviously, the one night that they were on, Franklin was in town that evening, so I know a lot's been made of that. And did he make a video? Obviously, another classic one on the message board, but I did not see them on tonight, or at least I didn't see when I was walking out of Castle. Are you hearing any potential OC names? I have not. I know a lot of people, obviously, that's a big concern. If we are talking about James Franklin, I want to emphasize nothing is done, so I don't want to speak like I'm speaking in the affirmative. But obviously, there's a lot of concerns, or a lot's been brought up of the OC hires. I feel like he was the same broken record with Shane Beamer, and now Andy Kotelnicki up at Penn State, and so sort of some of those struggles since bringing him in. Obviously, very successful at Kansas, but the Penn State offense really hasn't lived up to expectations in some certain years, even though, I mean, like, you're sort of splitting hairs when you're playing in the national semifinal. But no, haven't heard any names on that front yet. Sounds like he has contacted different staff and recruits that we touched on in previous episodes, but haven't heard specific names, at least on the OC yet. How many trailers can they fit on Chicken Hill for temporary offices? The Walls and Merriman ask. I'm not sure, but I think any number can be stretched after the Metallica concert. I don't know how many tractor trailers. I think it was like 78 trucks in the Lane parking lot, which is pretty impressive. So I think they could be able to roll out and rapidly expedite office space if that's what they had to do. There's space in Lane, or I'm sure they'd be able to work something out to get the ground ball rolling ahead of that Miami game and try and get some of the groundwork laid for that. That's a good question from Anna. How involved would Franklin be in the GM search? I think that's really interesting because obviously in this search, you know, it was made out to be that it was going to be a general manager first and then the head coach. And obviously there was muzzle put on different people as there was a different rollout of communications from different people. And obviously they wanted to go head coach first. Now, Andy Frank has been James Franklin's right-hand man pretty much his entire time in that GM of sorts. James Franklin, someone who's done it for a really long time, someone who I don't think is going to want to give up or relinquish control as much with player personnel, dealing with the NIL aspect of different things and hearing that from different contacts. So I would presume that GM role would maybe, would maybe be Andy Frank. Not exactly sure. See how that goes. Same with the athletic CEO position on how they move forward with that. But yeah. Catching up on comments. Appreciate everyone, man. I know this is dead air, probably against everything in the book, but you know, I'm trying to get to everyone's questions. Appreciate everyone. Make sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video. It's been a ton of fun, so I hope everyone else is enjoying it. How does a new NIL budget compare to Penn State or other top-tier ACC schools? This is a good question, and I'm not as well versed across the whole ACC and other schools. I mean, I have an idea of ballpark ranges of different schools. Obviously, you have your Texas Techs of the world that are pretty much in a class of their own, Oregon and Ohio State that pretty much outspend everyone, it puts them very competitive. In the ACC, it definitely puts them right up there in the top 3. Yeah, I mean, right up there with Clemson, Florida State, and I think that's really it in the ballpark range. I mean, pretty much immediately vaults them up to the top of the ACC. I mean, obviously SMU as well. They're pretty competitive. Miami, I can't forget. So top 5, close. But I mean, you're right in that ballpark. Maybe even outspending some of those, but definitely right back into the contention with top 25 caliber programs across conferences. So, yeah. I don't think it'll be a 10-year deal. I just think with incentives, you've heard that number, and like nothing's official. I don't know how they're going to shake that out, but I doubt it'll be 10 years, and I don't think that's going to be like the base figure. Appreciate the question. Sean, appreciate it. Based on the contract issues with Penn State, are you hearing that this can still be done by the weekend? Yes. I know I made like a whole little rant about billable hours and lawyers. I think they're still going to work pretty expeditiously to try and get this across the finish line. I don't think that'll be a major hindrance. I think it's just another snag and in the whole trail of this whole saga. But I don't think that'll be a major hindrance. Could definitely see it happening this weekend. Don't want to put anything like it will happen this weekend, obviously, as people have already been a little frustrated with the reporting. So I don't think that'll be a major snag. Sorry I'm late. Appreciate it. I'll probably get dragged again for this, but Denzel's in here. Sorry I'm late, but are you still confident we'll get done? Yes, I'm still feeling very confident that it will get done. You know, I think one of the largest points to point to is that James Franklin was back in Blacksburg, Virginia yesterday, Tuesday, November 11th, looking at houses. I think that is another sign, and we can go through other things, but I think the most recent positive sign that you can point to pretty objectively and say you got to be feeling pretty good if you're on the Virginia Tech stakeholder side. How many false prophecies? But look, man, I'm definitely not a prophet. I'm literally just relaying what I'm hearing, but appreciate the engagement. Oh, now we got a real question here from Hokie Lorian. Sick profile picture. Appreciate you in here. I see you supporting. That means a ton. Italianos or DP Dough? I mean, you got to go Italianos, right? I don't think they're a chain. So for me, DP Dough is a chain. You can go to pretty much any college town and get it. I love DP Dough, but you got to go local anytime you can. So shout out Italianos. This is Jason. You are the man for that. Appreciate the comment. Hopefully Terror Dome is going to be smoking tomorrow night. It very well could be, but that is the place to be. VTscoop.com, 100%. Hokie, any chance anything official comes out tomorrow or Friday before game day? It 100% could. Like, I think it is right around that timeline of where an announcement and a decision could get made. So, it wouldn't be shocking to see on game day them talking about it. Like, I would, anytime in the next couple of days, I would not be shocked by it. And I honestly felt like that for a couple of days. And then there was ebbs and flows, and it was backed off, and then it was back on, and there was another snag. So it's like, I don't want to pitch a false prophecy, but I think as of right now, you got to feel pretty good that they've cleared all these other benchmarks, and now it just sounds like one more snag. Now, will there be another snag next week? And if it keeps dragging out, it's like, okay, maybe it doesn't happen. But for right now, and the way both sides, it sounds like, are conversing, I think you have to feel pretty confident. It sounds like a broken record, but that's where it's at. Why does it feel like Christmas Eve? I'm not sure. It very well could be tomorrow. A lot of people are already hanging Christmas decorations around the town of Blacksburg, so maybe that's part of it. Would James Franklin bring any recruits or transfers with him if he is the man? Almost definitely. I think he would bring quite a contingent from both Penn State and especially in the high school recruiting ranks, and also in the transfer portal of players that were formerly recruited of him in high school. He's very, very highly thought of by former players, recruits, guys who even chose different schools. Very, very highly thought of Ace Recruiter's done an incredible job. Obviously, if you've been covering Virginia Tech's recruiting for the last 10, 15 years, Penn State has been able to come in and honestly eat Virginia Tech's lunch there for a little bit, and he's been a massive spearhead of that. So 100%, he would have quite a bit of luggage follow him. Have there been other head coach interviews yet, or everything on Franklin? It sounds like this is a little murky, but it sounds like they have had initial contact with Chesney. I don't think it's anything to the extent of coming on campus, not on campus, to the town multiple times to look at houses, but it sounds like they have interviewed him, their backup. So, Sean, appreciate the other question. What are your thoughts on the current staff and if any of them would be retained? I think there's some really, really great members of the staff. I think I'll touch on your last point first. If I were to point to one to be retained, I would 100% say Fontel Mines, the wide receivers coach, has a great relationship with James Franklin. Franklin tried to poach him away to be the receivers coach before, obviously, brought Hagens up there. But I feel confident. I've heard smoke that, this is also, where's their confidence that this could get done? When you hear things like you've already talked to maybe a future employer and you already feel really confident about staying where you are, I think that's another smokescreen that you have to feel pretty good for Virginia Tech, that Fontel Mines could stick around. Talk to Matt Moore, got that video up on the YouTube channel. If anyone wants to check that out, talk to him today. I think he's done a really great job with the offensive line. I know they took their licks early, but the talent in that room and what they had and the development that you've seen Aiden Lynch and Kyle Altuner, I think it's been really impressive. So I think he's done a good job. Elijah Brooks has done a good job recruiting different talent. But I think Mines is the one especially there to look at. And I think the very next comment was about this: would Mines be the only current assistant coach safely to remain? I would think that would be the only safe assumption for right now. How many times have you seen What's Your Confidence Level? Well, I walked a couple classes throughout the day. I walk downtown. I see people, and that's almost, they don't even say hi anymore. It's just, how are you feeling? What's your confidence level? So, been a couple times. Trying to not get head over the skis here. Feeling good, but appreciate it, Hokie Glory. Man, there's no place like vtscoop.com in this live chat. You guys, some comments I just can't put up on the screen, but just know I'm seeing them and they're getting a good kick out of me. Like, I appreciate that. Adams in here. Let's see what this says. Would having Franklin in the boat by next Saturday and hosting recruits, you would think the game time should be at night. I'm not sure what time they're going to flex that Miami game. The slate that week, what is that? That's the SEC unofficial bye week. I don't know how the ACC race is going to look. I know our aficionado Doug Bowman, allegedly Virginia Tech, VT Scoop contributor, potentially maybe moonlighting as a NC State moderator. I'll leave that up to VT Scoop, but I think he predicted that it could be a noon kick on ESPN2. Maybe that's a slot that fits. I haven't looked that intently into it. If it's a night game, Enter Sandman, it's going to be a little cold, most likely, with the way the weather's been here in Blacksburg recently. But yeah, under the lights, Lane Stadium, it's a great initial data point or selling point for a lot of recruits. So I'm not sure. I think a lot of that would hinge on the announcement if it were to happen in the next couple of days. Obviously, I think the 6-day hold would be Sunday. They would announce that, or maybe Saturday. So if the news comes out Thursday, Friday, or Saturday, could maybe swing how ESPN decides to broadcast that game. Because I don't think it'll be CW. That's a good question. I'm not exactly positive. I haven't looked too deeply into it, but that is a good question. Can you I think I touched on this already. Am I lagging now? Well, I'm lagging out. Okay, we're back. We got user, can you confirm the report that Franklin's camp won the deal finished by 11:15? I think I touched on that a little bit earlier up. Have heard some smoke about that. Can't confirm it with 100% validity. Have heard around that date that it sounds like he wanted to be in Blacksburg, boots on the ground working. So have heard that. I can't confirm it with 100% certainty, but that has been something. It was around that 14th, 15th, being boots on the ground ahead of that Miami game. That was sort of a big benchmark. And then Denzel, appreciate the comment. I'm driving in for the Miami game. Would love the new energy. Franklin hire is announced. Yeah, I think it would be big for the whole town, the surrounding region, especially with the way the basketball program, like you can just look at the fatigue of different people around, and, some of this news trickling out has obviously just been big, and nothing's even official yet. So, man, appreciate all the comments. This meant a ton. Got BRM in here. Did you hear anything interesting on your trip to Happy Valley? What sparked that trip? Like I said, that trip's been on the books here for a little while. Got some buddies up there, and I mean, look, I feel so fortunate to do what I do. But man, I love college football. Virginia Tech's on a bye week. Any opportunity to go see a new place, yeah, I'd jump at it. So hopped in the truck with a good friend and went up to see the game, and ended up being on the field, holding the flag for the national anthem, and talking to different players, different recruits I'd seen or covered and talked to, and even other media types that had worked in the region or different things. So just talking to different people, finding your way in different rooms and Beaver Stadium, and having some conversations. I mean, so what sparked it was just going to a football game. Obviously, at the time, bought the tickets. Looked like Penn State, Indiana was going to be a good game. Brent Pryor wasn't fired at the time. James Franklin wasn't the top target for Virginia Tech coaching search, but it sort of all came to a head, and talked to some of the right people that I think will be valuable potentially in the coming months on transfer portal, high school recruiting. So we'll leave it at that, but I appreciate it, BRM. Not sure that's Billy Ray there, but appreciate it. Got going to the movies with the super chat. Appreciate it, man. I don't know. This is why we need management to come in here. I don't know how this all got set up, but now I guess people do that. So that's cool. Appreciate it, man. Go to the movies. I don't even know how to get that, but that's cool. YouTube probably takes like 80% off the top. How do we know he was in town? Who confirmed that? So not going to go, obviously, air out the Storching Network here, but have it on very, very good authority through people extremely close to the situation, that it was a target, and then being able to lock down that it was James Franklin. As yesterday, as well as obviously going back to prior to the Louisville game, that one, maybe if you're even walking around different lots, you could have heard from someone that happened. So I'll leave it at that. But yeah. Couple more here. Appreciate it, man. This has been a ton of fun, everyone. Make sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video. A ton of support on this. Really hoping when I watch this back, the Wi-Fi stayed strong throughout. Tried to work on it, so hopefully it was good production for everyone. Would Florida State even be interested in Franklin? He's not drawing interest from big schools. Got Isaac Childers in here. Appreciate the comment. I think that'd be interesting. I don't know what move they're going to make. You've obviously heard that, they thought they were going to be done with Norvell, and things have materialized to this situation. I think there was also interest from big schools, like Auburn had their chance at him, but obviously Auburn, it sounds like they've circled in on either Durkin or Summerall, or maybe even another name. LSU, I don't think LSU was ever really looking at Franklin. I'm not sure Florida ever really was looking at Franklin. I'm not sure Florida was really looking at anyone except one candidate right now. So I don't think Florida State like that could materialize. That was school heard pretty early on. I don't think the result this weekend could shift that so much, and I don't think they've devolved even close. Obviously, they still have a sitting head coach into discussions as Virginia Tech. So I think that's why they're trying to wrap this up so soon, is just get it done. But yeah, sort of in a roundabout way, there's an answer. Andrew, my guy, appreciate you, man. A lot of good ones over there. I'm like my third favorite, but we'll take it. All right, that's a good comment here. Mitch P6S, appreciate the comment. What do you think is the biggest threat to it not getting done? Decides to do TV for a year, Arkansas, FSU opens, something else. Great question. Off the top of my head, I don't think Arkansas, honestly, not really FSU. The TV could be a part of it. If, he gets this deep in discussions, he gets so deep in discussions and everything's there at Virginia Tech, and he just says, nope, I'll wait for another opportunity. Because that's where everything's sort of been laid out. Virginia Tech has given their best offer, left absolutely nothing on the table. And for whatever reason, it's just not a fit, or waiting for something else, or just maybe needs a year, I think. And I don't think it's going that way, the way things have evolved, but I think that would be the biggest threat. Or on the other side of that, what can make it fall through at the 11th hour? is the Penn State buyout contract situation. I'm not a lawyer, but I think that would be the one massive hindrance if they can't work around that. Outside of those two things, if he wants to coach again, the interest hasn't really been there from some of those other premier schools, so I think it would be Virginia Tech. But I mean, there's a litany of reasons why massive deals that make a lot of sense falling through, but I think those would be my biggest ones. But really great question. Appreciate it. Billy the Killer Kid, new here. Do we ever talk hoops? Really not as much. Like I said, this is predominantly college football Virginia Tech show. But it looked like Neoclis of Dallas might be twisting the arm and force the issue, make us talk about Virginia Tech hoops. But appreciate you jumping in here. Cool. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Andrew, my parents went to Maryland. They want Loxley fired and Franklin hired. It's pretty crazy. I think still half the college football public thinks Mike Loxley got fired based on the troll account. Virginia Tech's obviously had their run-in with troll accounts through this whole James Franklin ordeal. It's a crazy world out there. So just seeing the intel. But yeah, I know a lot of people up there want Locks out. He's done a really great job recruiting, but the wins haven't translated. I think 5 straight losses. I don't think James Franklin will go back to Maryland. I've heard that from a couple different people. I just don't really see that materializing, but we'll see. Has James Franklin been spotted on campus yet? There's no pictures or anything going around of him on campus yet. No. Ross, appreciate it. I touched on this. If Franklin isn't the guy for whatever reason, who are the next guys up from your POV? Right now, I mean, last week you heard Diaz, you heard Fleck, you heard different names. Right now, I think it would just be Bob Chesney at JMU, sort of as that next guy, that backup to Franklin. But appreciate the question. Got FM saying, care to comment on the individuals that are cosplaying as insiders on the message board? Appreciate the subscription. I know people are getting frustrated. I think fatigue is just really high, so everyone gets not already annoyed when you're clicking through 80-page threads, which I think are a ton of fun. When you come from class or something, you already missed 10 threads, and you learn about a new trade or skill, or what's it tonight, being a girl dad, which is pretty cool, clicking through there. So I think it's a really cool community. Got a lot of new members joining over there. I would highly recommend vtscoop.com. I'm not sure. I think the first month $1, maybe that's the promo we're running. Like I said, I got to talk to management. I'm not up on it. I know, sounds like coming down the pipe, I'm going to have 75% off promo here coming within the next week. So there's really no better time to join. Get the yearly subscription, free Paramount Plus, especially with all this YouTube TV craziness. It's a really great deal. But yeah, I don't know. It's been cool to see new people. Obviously, everyone has a different connection. And when there's such a massive amount of hype or something around such a coaching search like this, which can be program defining, honestly, university defining, and I don't want to say that lightly because of realignment coming down the pipe. Obviously, there's a lot of emphasis and everyone wanting to be ahead of it. But yeah, there we go. We're going 50 minutes in. I can tell my answers sort of running on. What are the expectations for Franklin, assuming he gets hired? Is it feasible to hope for a playoff berth? Yeah, I mean, I think the committee, search committee, they went all in with that being the hope. You know, you go out and you get your top target to go get that ACC bid, go compete at that level. Someone who obviously led Penn State to that level, probably a step ahead of Virginia Tech as a program. But I think that is 100% a realistic expectation to try and get to the playoffs, build that, get to the ACC championship game, compete in the ACC, win games out of conference at a competitive level against the Big Ten and SEC. I think that is realistic with what they've put forward, both financially and resource-wise. I think we're getting here to the bottom of questions. Denzel, appreciate it. Drew Aller out of eligibility, so don't think he'll be falling to Virginia Tech. Just saw that comment again, but yeah, he's out of eligibility, so will not be falling to Virginia Tech. Touch on this a little bit. Has not visited Arkansas. I don't see a lot of the smoke there being really real. I think we'll end on this one with realignment. What conference best fits VT? That's $1 million question. Which conferences will exist when there's the big realignment? Is it going to be the Big 10 and the SEC? Is it going to be the Big 2? How are they going to merge? I think it's going to be really interesting. You have to get in one of those two to really sort of feel confident that you're going to be at the table. I'm not sure what's happening with the Big 10, and obviously looking for funding from whatever, like the Big 10 funding scheme and how they're working through that. I'm not exactly sure. Obviously, the SEC was Greg Sankey was just up at the podium saying, I think realistically we get 8 teams in the playoff or something to that effect, or 6 or 7. I just got. If anyone is hanging out here in the 56 minute, they just got me. Clip it. Anyways, I think it's just really paramount to find a way into either the Big 10 or the SEC as things continue to shift. So yeah, I think we'll end on that. Yeah, end on this one. The 5 truck 25, are the resources enough to keep Franklin from jumping to a larger program in say 2 or 3 years? I think that's a little bit questionable. I mean, like that's the eye of the beholder. If there's just so many factors with that. I think it keeps it really competitive, and you could see him staying here for 7 years or whatever it is, and competing at a high level in the ACC until the ACC is whatever happens to it. But the resources are competitive on the college football landscape, but of an attractive job. Look at Mike Elko. He was at Duke. They bought in, they gave him resources, and Texas A&M open. And if you're trying to be an elite college football head coach, you're going to go to Texas A&M. So, yeah. Touch on a couple more. Andrew, you should do a breaking news podcast. I mean, whoever the head coach is, we will be doing an emergency live episode. So make sure to subscribe to the channel, like this video. And yeah, we'll have all the content surrounding James Franklin, the head coaching search, and even more. But yeah, like I said, can't really iterate or say enough or emphasize how appreciative and thankful I've been to everyone who makes this show go. It's been a ton of fun meeting people just at the game around. It's been a ton of fun. So appreciate it. All feedback is welcome. Jump in the comments, reach out with what you want to see in the show, what you want to change. Hopefully we got the Wi-Fi fixed. I know it was a really big thing. Working on that this last week. So I'm glad, hopefully, that we got a good show out of that. But yeah, things are coming down the stretch. Appreciate all the support. It means the world. Subscribe to the channel, like the video, share it with a friend if you enjoyed. And yeah, we'll see you next time. We'll be somewhere in Doak Campbell Stadium, maybe even on the field, coming to you live Saturday night, maybe before that, if we get some breaking news. Until next time, Kolby Crawford signing out from Colby's Corner on Wednesday, November 12th. Have a great rest of your week. Enjoy some college football this weekend. Stay safe, be kind to each other, and God bless.